Hi, welcome to my channel Mostly Knitting. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new here, I'm Tash and this is a weekly podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing during the week, and I also put out regular tutorials. I'm recording on Wednesday the 29th of May here from Sydney, Australia. So I'm going to jump straight into my finished objects. I have two small finished objects. I haven't woven in the ends, but I'll get around to that. I just thought I'd better get on with recording. So the first one is just a really basic black hat out of Cascade 220 Superwash for my daughter's grandfather Gaby, and I just wanted to make him, he likes pretty basic color hats, and I had some of this black yarn left over, so I just cast on 96 stitches on a 3.75mm needle, 7 rows of 2x2 ribbing. Then I did 32 rows of stockinette plain on a 4mm needle, and then I started the decreases. I still think it's a little bit small in the rise. I might as well try it on just really quickly. So he doesn't have pretty much any hair, so it'll hopefully cover his ears, but I still feel like, I think I started the decreases around 5 inches from the bottom, from the hem, and I think probably I could have gone another ½ inch. So maybe next time if I use the same yarn and needles, instead of 32 rows, I might do say 36, 37. I do have enough yarn to rip back the decreases, but I think I'll just start another hat. Hats are so quick. So that one's done. Actually, I forgot to weigh it, so I'll just put down below what it actually weighs. The other things that I've finished are my Skimmer Socks for my mum. These are the Skimmer Socks by Sheila Toy Stromberg, and it's just using some yarn that was some of my aunt's leftovers from a project of hers, probably a shawl. So these ones I knit for my mum. So she was away for Mother's Day, so I'll give them to her when she gets back. So you can see I've still got to weave in that tail. But I did do for my mum, because she liked the back a little bit higher, I definitely did the sort of tab short rows at the back. And so it's got like I think it's a slip stitch heel. And these are, if you're new to my podcast, I've knit quite a few of these, and these are the only no-show socks that I've managed to find, or as a pattern. Even commercial ones don't stay up, they always slip down on my foot, whereas this one actually, these stay up. So yeah, I just thought these are really cute. They weigh about 16 or 17 grams each, so it's quite often, if you've made a normal pair of socks, you might have about 35 grams, depending on the size of your foot. You might have about that much left anyway, so you might be able to get like a normal pair of socks and a pair of Skimmer Socks out of them. Right, so they're my two finished objects for the week. I will talk about my friend from the vault. So if you're new here, that's a segment where I talk about something that I'd knit previously, and I'm wearing it now. So because I didn't have any garment finished objects this week, I thought I'd wear a friend from the vault this week. So this is Breakwater by Cecily, Glowik, MacDonald, and I used Madeline Tosh Merino Light, which is a 4-ply fingering weight yarn, and it is a single ply, but it is superwash, and it's probably, I reckon it would be my desert island favorite yarn. If I could only have one 4-ply yarn, I probably would have this one. I love lots of yarns, but I do really love this one. I've made a lot out of this yarn. So I made this in 2017. It's got a lovely linen stitch. It's really basic top-down top. It's got a linen stitch, so you cast on all of the stitches here, linen stitch for a few rows, and then raglan increases. Let me see what else was there. Raglan increases. I can't remember if there's any shaping in the pattern, but I added princess seam shaping. So I added waist decreases and then hip increases. And you can see, I think this is Coquette Deux. So there was a Coquette, which was a really pretty pink, but then I think maybe they couldn't get the exact dyes weren't being made. So this is Coquette number 2, Coquette Deux. And so it has linen stitch on the cuffs as well. And actually on the bottom, I think I just did a 2x2 rib. I can't remember what the pattern said. Maybe, because linen stitch is it's a sort of a woven stitch, so you're doing a lot of slipping. It doesn't have a lot of flexibility, so it probably wouldn't be great on the bottom. So I can't remember what the bottom said to do, but I think it probably just was. It's just a 1x1 rib. And so I've made this twice. I made this one in 2017, And this one was my first one. I made this one in 2012, and I can't remember the size I made. I'll put down below just what the bust actual, there's definitely negative ease in this. You can see like it's quite fitted. It's also got a slightly low back neck, but because it's a short sleeve top, it's not a jumper, that doesn't really bother me. I'm not wearing this to keep warm. This is just like my top to wear. And I wear this, I'm wearing this with some navy pants, but I would wear it with something like that, or a skirt for work. That's what I usually, or black, that's what I usually wear it with. And I wear these a lot. So this is the first one that I made in 2012. Given that they've been worn a lot, and what are we in now, 2024, this one's 12 years old. And I have worn it, I can't even tell you, it's probably got a bit of dog hair on it, but you know, other than that, I do have to sort of depill myself a bit when I leave the house. So this is the first one I made, and I made waist shaping on the sides here. And I obviously decided to do princess seam shaping here because I can see that's where the decreases are. I don't know how differently it fits, or I think with this one here, the yarn's so dark that you probably wouldn't have seen it as a feature. If it was a really light coloured yarn, you would definitely see it as a feature, and perhaps you can see it. I don't know if you can see that just underneath the bust, just down there. Yeah, I think you can kind of see it a bit better in the lighter yarn. I don't think it makes a big difference in the fit, whether you, maybe it does with sewing, but with knitting, I haven't found. I found these two fit. I wouldn't be able to tell when I had them on which one I had on, like, oh, that fits differently. But yeah, so this one, 12 years old, pretty much no pilling. Like, look at that, nothing at all, even like under the arms, you know, trying to think if there's any. Yeah, it's such a good yarn. Anyway, I hope this yarn never gets discontinued. I think it's knit with enough that I can't imagine they'd get rid of it unless there was some problem getting the base. And I don't know this for sure, but it seems like there are a lot of other single ply yarns with pretty much the same yardage, like Hedgehog skinny singles. I sort of wonder if they're from the same mill. I have no idea, but yeah. And when I knit with the Hedgehog, I pretty much get the same gauge. It knits, like, feels the same. So I couldn't say for sure, but I tend to wonder. Right, I think that's the only thing that I wanted to mention with my friend from the vault. But yeah, and they're so, like, it is next to skin soft. I'm not particularly like skin sensitive, but you know, I can tell a prickle, like if there's a little bit of itch factor, but there's nothing in this yarn. So, you know, I make shawls out of it. Like, gosh, if I had to think of every single project I've made with Tosh Merino Light, I've made dresses out of it, shawls, hats, tops. I don't think I've made a skirt out of it. No, I haven't made a skirt out of it. That might be pushing it. But yeah, I've made dresses, right? So I sit on it, and I think I've shown before my Still Light tunic in the green, the really bright green. Yeah, obviously sit on it. There's no pilling there anyway. So it's wonderful yarn. Right, so anyway, that's it for my friend from the vault. I'm going to get into my works in progress. I might just change it to a white top so I can show you a few things over them. So I have one new work in progress, and that is the Poppy Tea by Petite Knit, and I'm knitting it out of Sandnes Garn Sunday and Tynn Silk Mohair in the colours 4008. And I think I only cast this on maybe Monday night. And yeah, it's been really fun knitting it. I'll just try it on so you can see how I'm going. So I've only just joined in the round. So I'm knitting the extra small size, which is a 35.5 inch bust circumference. And the pattern gauge, I'm knitting it on a 3.5 millimeter needle, and the pattern gauge is 23 stitches over 4 inches. I think I'm getting a little bit less than that, like actually substantially, like sort of 10% less, like 25 stitches. So if I stay on that gauge, it will end up 32. I'll put in here like how I calculate it, just if you haven't seen any of my previous videos on if I'm knitting the 35.5 inch size, but I'm not on gauge, this is the pattern gauge, this is my gauge, how do I work out what this will end up being? That looks like turning out to about 32.5 inches, which is about just half an inch of positive ease for me, which I think that will be fine. Like I wouldn't want it, if it's somewhere in that window, because I don't think I'll get tighter than 25, but I certainly don't think I'd get bigger than 23. So my bust circumference should end up somewhere between 32.5 and 35.5. Anything in there will be all right with me. That will be sort of 0 to 3 inches of positive ease. So it's a really interesting construction. You knit the back, sort of the back first, and then you pick up some stitches. So you do all these increases on every row coming out here. Then you pick up some, you pick up some stitches, and I'm working down now. Pick up stitches here and then work down here on both sides separately. So there's a lot of do a bit, cut the yarn, do a bit, cut the yarn. So I've got ends hanging off everywhere, but I just love this color. I don't know if you can see my half and half wrap in the background. I might grab it just to show you the two against each other. And let me see what else I want to say. I'm absolutely in love with this color, and I'm so happy I've cast it on, and I'm really looking forward to, this is why I've made sort of so much progress. It's also fun right at the moment. So I'm just doing increases at the moment on the sleeves, and then eventually I'll be doing increases on the front and the sleeves, and then I'll break off. But before I break off, I'll definitely do some, like some blocking along the way, maybe even a few rows before I would break off, just to make sure. I really I like this, and I don't want it to be quite as snug as my my breakwaters. They are very fitted. I'm happy for this to be a little bit bigger, so that I'm happy for the arm side to go a little bit longer. But we'll see how we go. It's going to be a top, not a jumper. So with the jumper, I definitely want my arm side a bit longer because it's got to go over a top, whereas for a top, it's going over a bra. So like you can have it a little bit closer up. Anyway, I just think it's really lovely. That's the sort of design there. I don't know if you can see that, the design feature. Sorry, good view of my bra strap. So that's my new work in progress, and I'm so happy to have started it. And it's mostly stockinette. Like right now, it's just round and round and round and round. I can do it when I'm watching videos for my work, or in Zoom calls or whatever. So I'm very happy to have this on the needles, particularly because I finished the half and half wrap, which was a bit of a mindless knit for me. And this is now, not before, but now at this point, it's pretty much mindless. So I'm so happy about that. My next work in progress is Kirrmaier, and this is by Martin Storey, and I'm using Rowan Patina in the colorway Confetti, which is the is not only the yarn recommended for the pattern, but even the colorway in the pictures. It's a very bare bones pattern. It is 1 page. The yarn is really lovely and soft. It's got great yardage because of the construction. It's 50 grams is 250 meters. So I do think it would be a hard one to substitute yarn for. You definitely want something that you can get a 22 stitch gauge over, but is light and airy like this. And it's got sparkle too, which I quite like. Right, so it's on sort of too short a needle to show you properly, but you can see the stitch pattern there. It's quite a really lovely 3 stitches and then a 2 stitch section of knit 2 together, yarn over, or yarn over, knit 2 together. And at the moment, I'll just pull it out here. I'm doing lots of increases because it's a batwing construction. And as you increase out the side, you're increasing on every end. And I'm just doing knit front and back, purl front and back on either, if I'm on the knit row or the purl row, to increase the stitches. And when I've got 5, because it's a repeat of 5, once I've got maybe a bit more than 5, because I do have to do my increases. So I've got a marker that I keep moving over. So it's about ready to move now, actually, because I've got more than 5. So I'm ready to, I think, well, it just depends. Like I don't want to add one of these repeats around the increase. So, and I'm doing the increases 2 stitches in from the end because I am going to have to seam this. And I chose to do a provisional cast on so that later on, so this is the front or back. At the moment they're the same. Eventually they'll be a little bit different. The front will be a little bit lower. But later on, after I've sewn it together, then I'll pick up the stitches and knit down. Another thing that's different for me is it's meant to be knit on a 4mm needle, but I'm using a 3.5mm to get gauge. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm getting gauge. The only thing I will say is I will, so after I've done all the increases and then you have to knit straight, because my needle's a little bit smaller, it's quite likely that my row gauge will be off, which means, you know, if I'm knitting everything else to pattern, it's just not going to be as long in the body. And I am quite long-waisted. So I'm just thinking before I sort of say I'm done with the increases, I will get it on a really long needle and I'll block it and then just sort of see if I'm getting the right dimensions, both width and height. And then I'll make an assessment as to do I need to do anything else before I start the sleeve section on the pattern. Let me see, actually I might even grab it. Do I have it handy? Yes, I do actually. I have the pattern handy. So I blew it up because it's so, the writing is so small. I blew it up onto an A3 page. It's a free pattern. So, and you can see here, I just want to make sure that in the body it's going to be long enough, which like I think it will be. It's meant to sort of have a bit of blousiness, but if it's not long enough in the body for me, mine does not have the blousiness that it's meant to have. And I'll put a picture of, that's obviously the back, I'll put a picture of the front. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so here's the schematic. So it actually does have a schematic with sizing, but I just want to make sure that this is long enough before I start this bit here. Yep. So Beck's coming along really well. I don't know where she's quite at now, but a few days ago she was already up to the straight section. So I'll put a picture of hers and how it's going there. She's doing it in the same yarn, but in the gold. I can't remember what it's actually called, but like the goldish colorway. Right, so anyway, but that the only issue for me with this is I do have to pay a little bit of attention. So I'm kind of limited to when I'm watching TV, and I'm not watching a lot of TV at the moment. So yeah, this is not moving as quickly as I would like. So Beck is forging on ahead and I'm definitely bringing up the rear. Right, so that's work in progress number 2. I'm going to show you work in progress number 3 now is Snow Wonder by Heidi Kirrmaier. And I'm using, let me see, I'll get a large ball of it here, Rerum Natura Gilliat in the colorway Ciel, which is really, really pretty. And the pattern, the yarn recommended is Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, but this is quite similar. The gauge is 19 stitches over 4 inches and I'm getting gauge with this yarn, so that's all good. Last week I mentioned I had to, I think it was last week, anyway, I mentioned I had to rip back because the arm side wasn't long enough. So, and I'd already done the ribbing last week. What I've done since last week is I've done an extra 6 rows without any increases anywhere and not splitting off. So I thought I'll show you where I'm at now and is it ready for me to pull it, like to split it off. So what I've done is I've knitted onto, this probably sound a bit silly, I do have lots and lots of needles. I have knitted onto 4 individual, so I'm knitting it on a 4.5 millimeter needle, which is the recommended needle size. So I have 4 knitting needles hanging off this, one for each sleeve, one for the front and one for the back. So I've knit a couple of extra, see, I need to tidy up. I want to do that before next week, tidy up that little hole there. It always bothers me when after the pickup there's just, I mean, that's super easy to pick up with some of the yarn from the inside. But anyway, back onto what I was talking about. I've done a few extra rows. You can see I've got a few more bobbles if you saw last week. So I'm at the point now, one of the nice things about getting it either onto, you can put it onto like barber cords or waste yarn or, you know, whatever, dental floss if you want, something to hold it onto to then sort of see. Now I haven't blocked this, but I'm sort of pulling it down to sort of see where I think it would sit. And I think I'm now, see, if I wasn't casting any stitches under the arms, that would then join right there, which is long enough, but it still doesn't feel quite enough room. And I have a feeling that the sleeves, I have to have a look at people's Ravelry notes, but I have a feeling the sleeves are just a smidge smaller than, like they're sort of, they don't look too bad here actually. But remember, like I've got a cami on at the moment, I'd probably have a t-shirt on. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm knitting, sorry, I'll just mention, I'm knitting that somewhere between the extra small and the small size. The extra small is 34 3/4 inch bust. The small one is 37 1/4 inch bust. There's not a big difference in those two sizes. I think it's just to do with the cast on under the arms. So at this point, I think I'll just make a decision. I might need to cast on, the extra small has no stitches cast on under the arms. I haven't actually had a look at what the small has. But at this point, I'm not really focused on the pattern. I'm just like, how does it fit for me? And I reckon I'd like at least 4 stitches under the arms. when you cast on stitches under the arms, that will add stitches to both the sleeve and the body, because then they'll be, so when you cast on stitches under the arms, you're going to knit down, so you're adding on under the body, and then you're also going to pick those up when you do the sleeves. So anything that gets cast on under the arms adds to both. So the good thing about that is it would actually help me perhaps with the sleeve circumference. It will make the body a little bit bigger, which I'm okay because I actually want this kind of oversized. The other thing you can kind of do to sort of steal a little bit is, you see I've got these increases down here on the sleeves. The increases are done one on either side of this seam stitch. So there's actually 2 stitches here, and then an increase here and an increase here. And normally you would give one to the body and one to the sleeve. If you're really pushing it, you could actually give both of them to the sleeve. You're not gonna see any difference here, right? It's sort of sitting under the arm. So even if the pattern says, oh, this one goes to the sleeve, this one goes to the body, you could give both of them to the sleeve and get 2 bonus stitches on the sleeves and 2 less on the front and 2 less on the back. So you'd get 4 stitches less on the body and 2 each more on each sleeve if you need to, right? So, and I'll have a think about that. I might look at what other people's Ravelry projects say, but I reckon so I've done 6 more rows. I know I'm talking about this a lot, but I just think modifying sweater patterns, it's, you know, like, yeah, this is the pattern, but like, this is the beauty of top down. Now I'm at the point where whatever the pattern says, I need it to fit me. And if I do what the pattern says, but it doesn't fit me, how good is that? Like, that doesn't help me. So I can tell now, which I could have, which is what I did. I followed the pattern, I split off. It didn't fit. So, you know, whatever the pattern says, you need to go with what's working for you. So for me, I think I am ready now 6 was enough, I reckon. I'm also a bit short on yarn, so I've just got to be a little bit careful. But I think that's going to be fine. Could do 2 more rows, but I reckon just those 6 casting on under the arm. Sorry about all the clanking. I think going to be good to go. So I was going to join it together the other day, and then I thought, you know what, I've got so many other things I want to make. I might as well show you this, and then I'm ready to go. So, and this is definitely not a mindless knit for me because of all the bobbles in the beginning. But then once I've finished the bobbles, it will be super straightforward, and obviously the sleeves will be. With the sleeves, I'll just be trying them on as I go. I have to do my own sleeve shaping anyway. I think I will taper this one, but I still don't do my tapering for quite a while because my arm circumference stays pretty much the same right up until about here. I obviously have puny little biceps and big forearms or whatever. I don't know. There's just not much shaping there for me. So, right. So I think that's all I wanted to say for this one. Oh, the only other thing that I did slightly differently was when I picked up the stitches for the neckline, I ended up with 4 more stitches. So I had 96 instead of 92. And I just went with it. That's fine. I don't feel like it's it. You know, sometimes those numbers aren't hard and fast, but obviously with a 2x2 rib, it has to be a multiple of 4. So my size said 92. I ended up with 96. It's fine. Like, I'm happy with that. And that was on a 4mm needle, which is a little unusual. Normally you go down 2 sizes for your ribbing, but I think this is meant to be in keeping with the design. It's a little bit more casual. Right. Okay. You can tell I'm very excited about my knitting at the moment. I'm just loving everything that I'm working on. And I am enjoying Charisma. I'm just finding it a bit hard because it's not, I have to pay a bit too much attention just at the moment. Well, actually, I think I probably will the whole because of the design. It will be a bit of a pay attention pattern. Right, that's it for Snow Wonder. Now, I've got 2 more works in progress to show you. I'm a bit embarrassed about this one, but anyway, I'll show you. It's Camisole number 9 by My Favourite Things Knitwear, and I'm knitting it in Knitting for Olive cotton merino, which I really like this yarn. I think I heard on someone's podcast that they didn't have much in stock at the moment, but it's kind of back. I haven't been shopping for it lately, but I really like this yarn. It's really lovely yarn. I'm knitting it, this colorway is Bark. I'm knitting it on 1 size smaller needle. I'm knitting it on the 2.75mm needle, and I used a 2mm needle for the pickup. So last week I had already done the neckline and I'd done 1 sleeve. This week I did the other sleeve. I went to sew it down. I'm just going to show you what I did because I want to see if you can see what I did. I can't believe I did this. Anyway, I mean, I can believe it. I wasn't really thinking when I was doing it. So you're meant to pick up the stitches from the wrong side, because you pick up from the wrong side, and so you're knitting stockinette in the round, so you're knitting the whole time, and then you fold it over, and you can see I wouldn't be able to wear a normal, well, for me, I wouldn't like to wear a normal bra with this. I'd have to wear, for me, I'd have to wear a strapless bra, but it fits really well under the arms. Like you can see, you can't, I'll just pull that white cami down. You can't see the, a strapless bra would be fine, right? The problem here is I picked up these stitches on the right side, not the wrong side, because I went to sew it down and went, oh, hang on. I just couldn't believe it. So I just shoved it in the corner and went, okay, it's not that big a deal. But one of the things that was really interesting when I was picking up these stitches was I was like, this is really easy to pick up. Why was I complaining about this last time? Well, it was really easy to pick up because I was picking up from the right side. It's not quite as easy to pick up when you're picking up from the wrong side, because it's much harder to work out sort of in my, you know, where am I in, like in my pickup. That's why I had a whole bunch of stitch markers all the way around. Every 18th row, I had a stitch marker, so that, because it's a 2 for 3 pickup, every every 3 rows you pick up 2. So pick up, skip, pick up, skip. So I just did like it in sections of 18 stitches. I put stitch markers, 2/3 of 18 is 12. So I knew between stitch markers I needed to pick up 12. And I was picking them up going, why was I so annoyed about this last time? Well, yes, because I was picking it up on the wrong side, on the right side, when I should have been picking it up on the wrong side. As a result, and it was 20 rows of knitting. So that's not that much. It's 144. I think you meant to pick up 142 for my size, but I picked up 144. I don't think I'm giving away too much in this pattern. You need this pattern. You need to buy this pattern to knit this, right? Like I think, like for me, those numbers I don't think would tell you enough to knit it. So I had two more stitches, so not that big a deal. That was fine. Obviously, it's fine. You know, like totally fine. Fits well, but yeah. And I was watching a movie while I knit it, so it's not that big a deal. But I just thought, oh, you know what, I'll show you before I rip it out. But I am going to rip it out after I finish recording, because like the stitches will then get a bit in that groove of, you know, like the longer you leave it after it's been knitted, it's more kinky when you unwind it. So I'm not going to just like shove this in a corner and not pull the yarn out. I will definitely pull all the yarn out. And I might try and make myself pick it up the day that I pull it out, just to get the ball rolling. This is a yarn that I have, this plus one more ball. I think I'll have enough without this yarn, so I think I'm just going to like pull it out and start on fresh yarn and only use this if I'm desperate. It's definitely better to use unknit yarn if you can. Right, so yes, that's a bit of a shame, but you know what, it's actually really good is I've been able to, in just at least having this on, I'm able to sort of work out, you know, like I can try it on properly and go, you know what, that is fitting. I'll show you on the correct side with that. That's fitting really well, you know, like I've only got it on over a camisole, whatever, like a little white camisole. I think that's going to be great. So I'm kind of revved up to finish this now, even though that kind of was discouraging. It's not discouraging and now I'll never look at you again. It's just like, that was a waste of time. But I know what I need to do. So it's not like, oh, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do next. I do know what I need to do next. I need to rip it out and do it again. Right, so one more work in progress. Where is it? Here it is. I know I'm talking really fast. I think I haven't even had, I don't drink I drink caffeinated tea. It doesn't have a lot of caffeine. I drink decaf coffee. It must just be my knitting. Anyway, sorry if I'm talking a bit too fast. Maybe if you normally listen to me on 1.5 speed, you might need to listen to me on 1.25 today. Right, so my last work in progress is the Oslo hat with Mohair, and I'm knitting it out of Knitting for Olive Merino, which is actually, this is my first time using this yarn. It's really nice, but I'm using it with the Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair, and that they're both the colorway Soft Blue. So I'm knitting, obviously, the Oslo hat with Mohair. I'm knitting it on a larger needle though, 3.5mm needle, and I've done heaps. So this is for my friend, because, you know, this is such easy knitting. I knit this when I'm on playground duty or in meetings when I need something quite small and just in my lap and something a bit discreet. I mean, I'm not hiding it, but just like not kind of, it would have been tricky to knit the half and half wrap in a meeting where I'm like, oh, I have done that. I've done that in presentations before. But anyway, this is nice and small and portable knitting, and it's not too heavy on my hands if I'm walking or whatever. Although probably at this point, it's starting to get a little bit big for walking knitting. Right, I forget what I've actually said about this. I've told you the yarn, 3.5mm needle. I cast on 112 stitches. What I did say I was going to do last week was I said I was going to put some stitch markers and show you, because you sort of turn and fold and whatever, I'll show you where I'm knitting. So this is my cast on here. I did a provisional cast, I did a provisional cast on 112 stitches. And I only did it with I used a waste yarn for the provisional cast on, and then I did the first row just with the Merino. Then I did 60 rows with both yarns, and this is my, just so you know, in terms of when you wear the hat, the first 30, the first half, whatever, 30 rows are definitely on the inside, because this is the way I'm going to be wearing the hat and folding that up. So this is your first 30, for me, 30, whatever, first half of your rows. Then this is the next 30 rows. So, you know, then I knit them together. So that's why where you see this here is where they knit together. So knit 30, keep knitting. So this purple is like my second 30 rows, and that's what's going to be flipped up. Then I knit 7 more rows for me, 6 more rows. I think I only knit 6 more rows. Then you do a turn and start knitting in the reverse direction. So I just wanted you to understand where like if you were going to, sometimes people are running a bit short of their mohair. And if you had like another mohair that was similar but not exactly the same, you could probably do it for the first section of your knitting, because you won't see, this is the first start of your knitting, so you won't see that. And then they're the rows where you turn. Hopefully you won't see that either. That will sort of just be in against your head. I don't know that I would knit it without the mohair. I think that would change your gauge actually. I mean, I guess you could. It's going to be on the inside. You definitely want to use the same needles, but I'd just be aware that it might be smaller, right? So something to think about. I've never done it, but certainly if you were short of this mohair and you had something sort of a similar and you just didn't want it, you obviously, like if you run out of it, you run out at the top, right? There's nothing you can do. You could maybe do a few rows of it in here because it wouldn't get seen. Anyway, I'm almost to the point where that's just I'm counting. I just figure I'm going to do this as a repeat knit. So if I actually count all the rows, then I'm going to be able to come back to it later and do it exactly the same with the next one, with the same yarn or similar yarn. So I think this is 30 rows here. I think I'm going to get to about 45-ish. So I don't have many more rows without decreases. And then I'll start doing the decreases for the crown. So that one's almost done. And this is going to be a gift. And so I probably won't be able to show. I plan to give it away on Saturday. I've definitely got to get it done. What's today? Wednesday. Got to get it done by Saturday. But I think I will. I think I'll have it done by then because there's really not that much to go. So I probably won't have it to show because I want to give it to my friend Amy. So I'll take some photos though and make sure I show it. But you know what? This is I'll be making more. Here's a couple more. Here's a couple more. This is what it's going to look like, right? Like this or this, right? But in blue. And yeah, anyway, so that's my last work in progress. I think that's all I wanted to say about that, and I'm going to move on to my next section. Right, so I thought I would just put on my other Breakwater top just to so you could see that one as well. This is in Venetian, so it's also Tosh Merino Light, but the colorway Venetian, which I just love this color. And I think I did everything the same except the waist shaping. I did waist shaping on the sides, but I don't think you can tell the difference. The front and the back is exactly the same in this top, so there's no short rows or anything, but I suppose you could add short rows, but I haven't really felt the need to because of the style, and it's not a sweater. I've been quite happy to have that as sort of a low back. It's sort of, I don't know if boat neck's quite the right word, but it's got quite a wide neckline. And I also just quickly measured in, while I was getting changed, the bust circumference, and it's 20, they're both 29 inches. So this is, for me, this is 3 inches of negative ease. So, and I think like for me, for a top, especially for a fitted work top, I quite like that. I'm happy for my poppy tee to have no ease or even a little bit of ease, because it's just got a little bit more of that kind of, not slouch, but just a little bit more room. So I don't think I'll end up with negative ease on it. I think it will be either no or maybe an inch or two. Right, so this is actually just a little mini segment that may not be in every podcast, but I thought I'd mention one. So I'll have a tips segment. So even though I have tutorials, sometimes people mention in the comments a little tip around something, and I think, oh, it's not enough for me to put a whole tutorial out, but I might mention it. So one of the viewers, Hilda, mentioned with the storm sweater. So this is my storm sweater that I knit by Petite Knit in Peer Gynt in the colourway Ash Melange. And when I knit it, I mentioned that like it sort of balloons a little bit. It's actually not too bad on, and I've sort of blocked it out reasonably, but I don't know if you can see with the stitch patterns, because it's a whole bunch of different stitch patterns, the gauge is different on them. So can you see how this one stitch pattern, because it's like a ribbing, sort of, not quite a ribbing, it's got like ribbing every other row. I don't know what that's called. I should look it up. See how this is wider than this? Like the stitch count hasn't changed at all, but this pulls in and then this comes out again. And then obviously ribbing on the bottom pulls in. So Hilda had the suggestion, particularly for the one that's right at the bottom, or maybe for these ones here, you could use, go down a needle size. And I think that's a really great idea. I'd probably want to swatch on it before I started doing the whole sweater. But yeah, so this is knit, except for the ribbing, it's knit on a 4mm needle. So if you wanted to go down to a 3.75 for these sections, it's an idea, right? So I'm curious if anyone has actually done that for this sweater or other sweaters that have a similar panelled sections that the gauge isn't exactly the same for each section. Yeah, anyway, I love this sweater. Right, so I just thought I'd mention that. Thank you, Hilda, for that tip. And if I would consider doing that, but if I was going to do it, I'd definitely do it on a swatch first, just to make sure. Right, so I'm up to acquisitions. So my first acquisition was the poppy tee. I bought the pattern and I used money that was in my PayPal account. So thank you to everyone who has been donating on Coffee, because that just means I've got money there to pay for them. And obviously, like, that's just a really lovely, generous thing. So I just wanted to say thank you. And each time I go to buy something, I think, oh, so thank you for that. And the other acquisition that I have is not something that I bought, but Michelle gave me as a little present for my birthday. She sent me a pattern called Tailwind by Catherine Knutson. So I'll just put a picture of it up there. And yeah, it just looks like a really pretty shawl pattern with a few different colors. I haven't looked through the whole pattern yet. I just downloaded it, but I'm curious to see, because I have so many leftovers that I love seeing shawls that have different different colors in it, and maybe that might work for a 50-gram ball that I've got out of this, and I can pair some of my leftovers together. So thank you, Michelle. The other thing that is an acquisition that's not purchased but was sent to me in the mail, I mentioned recently that Bendigo Woollen Mills, they send out shade cards, and so they've got a new yarn called, so this is in Australia, this is a woolen mill that's in Victoria, and this is their new line of yarn called Whisper, and it's an 8-ply, 100% Australian superfine merino, and it's machine washable. So that just came in the mail, and I'm actually, it's normally going to be $22 Australian per 200-gram ball. So, but at the moment it's, in the early release, it's $19 per 200-gram ball. So that's about about $12.50 US. So for 200 grams. So it's for 100% Australian superfine merino, and it feels really soft. So yeah, that just came in the mail, and I'll get to that in plans. I'm already thinking about buying some, because I haven't bought any yarn for I think a while actually. Anyway, right, so that's it for acquisitions. I'm going to get into what has caught my eye. So the first thing that has caught my eye is actually, I was watching Selma from Little Big Knits, and I noticed she had made the anchor tee, but with the, you know how the anchor's got so many different versions, but there's one in like a 20 stitch gauge, which is the ones that I've made. And there's also one for a 28 stitch gauge, which I think is really nice for a light summer top. And so Selma had made one in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. It's really beautiful whitish off-white color. And she actually really graciously mentioned my podcast because she was talking about how she didn't add short rows, but that you could, and she was thinking about adding them in the ribbing, and that I had done a tutorial on adding them in the stockinette section. And yeah, so she said really love it. So thank you. If you're watching, Selma, thank you so much for referring to that. And yeah, and I also recently put up a podcast on adding short rows in the ribbing, and you definitely could do that for the anchor tee. So that caught my eye because it just looked so pretty, and I think even nicer in a finer gauge for a top. So I mean, I actually really like it in my 20 stitch gauge, but yeah, I'm thinking, because I do love the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino yarn so much, I could see myself making that. I probably would buy that pattern because I just really wouldn't, I could do the math, honestly. I could just, pretty much everything, mostly, would probably be, you know, like 20, 28, multiply by 28, divide by 20, but yeah, I don't know, I'd probably be lazy and you know, I don't mind supporting designers by buying the patterns, but I do sometimes, I sort of think, oh, is it really that different? I'll be very curious when I buy it. I probably will buy it, just sort of for the avoidance of doubt and guessing, because, you know, like if I do stuff it up, the amount of time wasted versus the amount of time that the pattern, or the cost of the pattern, I'll report back if it's really any different and whether you need it or not. I certainly did that with the Oslo hat for Mohair. If you have the Oslo hat or the Oslo hat for Mohair, you do not need to buy the other pattern. They are practically the same pattern with a 22 versus a 23 stitch gauge. The Oslo hat with Mohair has a few more sizes, but really it's, you know, you do not need both. So I'll report back I probably will buy it, and I'll report back if you need both or not. Yes, oh, I mean, I won't give any of the information on either of them away. Like even on my videos, I don't talk about the numbers or anything, but I think it's fair to be able to tell you, if you have one, do you need the other? Because it's certainly not it's not clear if you do or not. So I will mention that. Anyway, sorry, back to Selma. So I really liked her anchor tee in the 28 stitch gauge, and I think I would, and that's about the gauge that I get for Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, so that's good to know. I always like that, knowing that going in, yeah, I'd get that gauge. And the other thing that she had made, which was just stunning, was this peacock tee by Lena Holm Samso. I don't know exactly how to say that, but now that pattern, the peacock tee, is made for Sandnes Garn Lena, and I think that's a pretty easily accessible yarn. And I knit my my Thea top out of that yarn, and I really like it. It's really nice to wear. For a 20 stitch gauge cotton yarn, like cotton blend yarn, it's really nice. So like, and not too heavy, and you know, it's held its shape really well, and I've worn it quite a few times. So I would either buy that yarn for it. I am already thinking about making it, because hers was in this gorgeous orangey sort of color. It was so pretty. She used a yarn called Langlino. I can't remember the name of the color that she used. I'll see if I can find it and put it down here, but it's just so nice. And she even talked about making a dress out of that yarn. She did cut, because the peacock's got some lace up here, the peacock tee has some lace, she cut out one of the repeats, and I like that. Like, you can, with knitting something top down, you can try it on. You could probably even, especially because it's lace, I'd block it, because I wouldn't want it the lace coming down into where you could see the cups of my bra. I wouldn't mind you being able to see a little bit of the straps, but I wouldn't want to see the cups through the lace. So if you're finding that might happen, you could just cut out one of the lace motifs. But yeah, I think a dress version of that would be lovely. Yeah, maybe a bit heavy, but just because it's the weight of the yarn, but yeah, it's something to think about. The other things that have caught my eye was a top by Isabel Kramer called the Mia Cara tee, and I saw that I think from I get the Mayak newsletter. I don't know that, I think I've only used Myac yarn, Myac lace once in some mitts and a hat, a beanie for my daughter. I've never actually used the yarn just by itself or for a garment or anything, but I am really curious to try it. Yeah, so I'm on the Myac newsletter, mainly because I want to go to one of the retreats. And I would like to knit with the yarn, but the retreats in Italy, like I've seen Kim from Kim and Jonna, I think she went last year, I think she's going again this year, and it's with Hohi Locatelli, and that's just like a dream holiday for me. I so want to do that. So I'm not sure when, but one day I will definitely do that at some point. Anyway, I'm digressing, but I noticed that tee, looks like a really pretty tee, and that's where I saw it on that newsletter. The other things that have caught my eye is a podcaster called Clonets, and she did a summer tops video recently, which looked really cool. Now she's actually she's French Canadian, so she has two channels. She has one that she does in French, which she's been doing for a really long time, and then she's I think reasonably new to starting her English one, which I think is just amazing. Like, this is enough work to do once in one language, but to do it twice, I think that's so lovely of her. And in fact, I went over to her French channel just because I wanted to hear her speak French, because I just love the French. Like, I love hearing people speak French. It's so, if I could speak another language, I wish I could. If I could. And I did learn French for a while. I really, really enjoyed it. And when I went to France, I just loved being able to try to speak as much as I could. Of course, I can't remember almost anything now, but yeah, I'd love to be able to speak French. I wish, anyway, I'm really getting into off-topic stuff now. Just quickly, my dad was Croatian, and I always wish that he had taught me Croatian, but he sort of, when he came to Australia, just really wanted to completely immerse himself, and he didn't join a Croatian community, and I never learnt, and my brother never learnt, and I wish we had, but and I think probably at 50 it's a bit a bit late to, it's never too late. It's never too late to learn, and I love learning, but languages you need to put a lot of time into. So, and I do want to go back to Croatia one day, but maybe I should learn at least a little bit before I do that. That's another holiday plan. Okay, definitely getting off topic. Back to what has caught my eye. Clonets. It was a great video. If you haven't checked her out, she's really awesome. If you speak French, I'm sure you're probably already watching her French podcast, but if not, you might enjoy her English one. The last thing that has caught my eye, well, I'm sure there's lots more, but the last that I'll mention is Beth MacDonald Stone did one on where she sort of talked about some of her summer tops, and there's one that she wore that I just thought looked amazing, and it's the Roving Summer Top by Irene Lynn, and she used Sandnes Garn Lena in black, and yeah, it just looks fantastic. It doesn't look like a really harsh black, like the black that I'm using for that hat, or they used the Cascade 220 Superwash is black, but maybe because cotton doesn't pick up or maybe because it's a blend, some of the colors doesn't pick up the dye quite as much. It's sort of a bit of a heathered black. Anyway, I thought her version looked even prettier than the ones in the pattern picture. I was really drawn to that. And then when I went to the pattern pictures, I was like, oh, yeah, that's all right. But I wouldn't have thought to make it from that. That's what I just love about seeing it on someone in a podcast or on Ravelry, because you're like, oh, I want to make that. But then maybe I didn't love it as much in the original design. Speaking of that, that was something I mentioned last week. Where was it? In last week, I just want to mention that because that just made me think of that. No, it wasn't last week. It was 2 weeks ago. There was Margot Chien. She made, what was it? Where was it? The Alyssum? I think it was Alyssum. It was either the Alyssum or the Mountain Ash sweater. One of those. Maybe it was the Mountain Ash sweater. Mountain Ash sweater. I liked her version so much more. Maybe it was the colors that she chose were just popped so much. So yeah, anyway, that's what I really like about, I guess, Instagram and Ravelry and YouTube. You get to see it in different yarns, different colors, different body shapes, different people. And you might be really drawn to something that when you first originally saw it come out didn't grab you as much. So yep, so that's it for what has caught my eye. I will get on to my plans. Right, so I'm up to my plans now. I mentioned when I got this shade card, I thought, I definitely want to do an order from Bendigo Woollen Mills, because my son went off to music camp on Monday, and it's quite cold here, and I would I wanted him to take a beanie or something, and I think he wanted to take one, but out of all the hats I've knit, and the number that are in this house is probably like easily 50 hats in this house. He didn't want any of them. He liked the muscle bras that I've made. He liked that style, but didn't like any of the colours. And he said he would have worn that if it was in dark grey. So I thought this pewter colour is dark grey, and he definitely wouldn't want something if it was even remotely itchy. So because this is 100% superwash merino, and I think it feels quite soft, just putting it against my head. Yep, that I can't feel anything there. That's so soft. So yeah, so I thought I might get that, but because that's 8 ply, this is only in an 8 ply at the moment. I wouldn't make the muscle bra out of that. I'd maybe make an Oslo, and the Oslo is pretty similar in style to the muscle bra. So yeah, so that's a plan for me. I'm going to order that, and I'll make one for him. If he doesn't wear it, I'll give it to someone else. Maybe it will go to Mia's grandpa Gaby, because he would, I'm sure he would like that color. And if he doesn't like that, then I will buy some 4 ply. I don't have any dark gray 4 ply yarn that he would like, that would be next to Skin Soft, that I could make a muscle bra out of. I mean, I have so much stash, but I just don't have that. So I could order him some 4 ply from Bendigo Woollen Mills. The Luxury is a really nice yarn, and it's next to Skin Soft. And I thought maybe this slate color here would be quite nice. But it's on back order in the 4 ply, so which is what I would want to use for the muscle bra. I know you can use lots of different yarns, like weight yarns for the muscle bra, but I don't really like it very much because of the 4 layers for the brim. I think it's just too much I don't like it as much in the heavier yarns. So yeah, I'm hoping you would like an Oslo out of the pewter. So that's definitely in my plans. The other thing that I was thinking about, and I was planning to order from Bendigo Woollen Mills, was I wanted to make this Stella quilt cushion, and I probably got enough 8 ply yarn in these for each of these sections. I think Knits did a video where she weighed all of the yarn that she used for it, and I think these take maybe something like 16 grams. I'll put down here if that's wrong. So I'm sure I'd have 16 grams of 8 different colors that would coordinate, I think. Because I just don't want to buy, because these come in such large balls, I was thinking maybe I would buy the Magnolia for the base, and just that, you know, really light color yarn. And I wouldn't want to, yeah, I don't want to buy a whole bunch of 200 gram balls for 16 grams. So I think I would just, but I'd at least buy enough for, now also the other thing that, Amy from Knits was mentioning, like for the back of the, I don't think there's enough on there for you to see, the back of the pillow, she said, you know, instead of knitting the whole back, you could just sew the back. But obviously that's really nice, easy knitting for me, and I wouldn't mind doing the whole thing in it. But yeah, it could feel like a bit of a slog, but I don't know. And I also quite like the whole envelope style. I do like to be able to take things off and wash them if I need to. Yeah, I mean, it probably wouldn't go on the couch where the dog is, but still, you know, yeah, and it wouldn't be, I don't know if it really needs to be washable, but I don't know, I like the idea of being able to remove it if you need to. Yep, so that's upcoming plans though, and an upcoming purchase as well. The other thing that I was thinking about doing, oh yes, is another, when I finish that Oslo hat, probably even before I finish it, I'll get another one on the needles, and I'm planning to use Knitting for Olive in Merino again and soft silk mohair in the colorway Ballerina. And if I do happen to run out of yarn, I have some in another very similar color. It's a little bit darker, but I'm curious to, because this is exactly the same as I'm making for the soft silk, the soft blue, I reckon I could probably do it and manage. And I also have, like, I'll put a link to my video with a little formula for working out to make sure you leave enough yarn for the decreases. It's a pretty straightforward formula, but I've just got a tutorial on that. So if I follow my own advice, I could get away with that without running out. And I think it would be long enough. 225 meters is a fair bit. So, yep. So anyway, that's my upcoming plans. This has been quite a chatty one. I've been really excited by my knitting. So because I do lots of little and breaks, I don't know how long this is, but hopefully not too long for you. Right, so if I'm going to get onto my personal stuff now, so if you're leaving me now, thank you so much for watching, And yeah, and I'll be back next week with hopefully more progress on, well, definitely more progress on some. I don't know what, depends what, you know, mostly it depends what else I'm doing as to what knitting goes along with me. At the moment, I'm mostly driven by what I need to get done and what knitting will go with that. Right, so yes, so if you're leaving me, thanks so much and I'll see you next week. Right, so personal stuff. I had somebody ask me if I would introduce my dog. He's not very, not that interested in being in the camera. He's actually right underneath the desk at the moment because there is, even though I've turned the heat off, there's a vent there, and I think he lives in hope that I'll turn it on again. So there's a picture of him from earlier today while I was getting ready for recording. Now, I'm sitting here and I've got another desk with another vent about 1 meter away. I put a picture of it up there. There's nothing there. He doesn't lie there. There's a vent there as well. He doesn't lie there. He just wants to lie right at my feet. So if you've heard any little it's not my stomach, it's the dog. Yes, or any because he often lets out farts. He's a bit smelly. So his name's Gus. He's 13 years old. He's a rescue dog. We had another dog, Lily, who was 18 months older than him, and she we had to put her down about a year ago, just before I started recording, I think actually. She she was so sick by the end. It was cruel to keep her alive. She just got really, really unwell. And, you know, she's a big dog. Anyway, so somebody asked about my dogs. We had 2 dogs for most of the kids growing up. And now we've just got Gus, but he is 13 and a bit. So I'm not sure how much longer we'll have him. He's on all sorts of medication for arthritis, and I think he has something called Cushing's disease. He's on, like, as we get older, more things go wrong. So yeah, anyway, we're just really happy with have him as long as we do. And then I had another question about games that we play. So my family, we're all big games players. We play a lot of cards. We play 500, and we play something that I think is normally called Oh Hell, but we call it Cheese and Pickles. Maybe it's called OSHIT. I won't say that out loud in case there's any little kids watching. But yeah, we changed the name to Cheese and Pickles. I don't know why. But that's a really fun card game as well. Cheat. There's lots of good fun card games that we play. But in terms of board games, we play Ticket to Ride. We played a lot with my dad. We play Wingspan. My dad never quite got into that one because the writing is so small and it was just a little bit too, bit too many things happening with that one. We played Settlers of Catan. We played a game called Puerto Rico, which is really fun. Played Sushi Go, which is quite fun and pretty easy to pick up. Secret Hitler, that's another good one. Sequence is a good, really easy game, and it can take up to 6 players, but you can't play with 5 people. But that's quite a really straightforward, easy game to play. We played this one game, which we picked up, we got from the US from friends. I don't even know if it's here in Australia or if they still sell it in the US. It's called Catchphrase, and you've got this thing with a buzzer and you pass it around the table and you're in teams, and like it's a really good game for large groups. So our whole family really, it can be really funny when people don't understand what the word of what they're trying to, especially if they're young kids, understand what they're the clue, because you have to give clues, but without using the word for people to guess, people on your team. Anyway, that's something that is a really fun game. And 5-second rule, that's another good one. And one game that we haven't played a lot of, but because it just got a little bit out of hand, is Throw Burrito, where you actually have to like chuck things at people. I don't like anything flying at me, even if it is a soft, squishy burrito kind of, like it's just a soft toy thing, but I just don't like something getting thrown at me. So I didn't really get into that game, but the kids definitely liked it. So that was just, somebody asked me about the games we play, so that's one of the things that we play, or some of the games that we play. The other thing that's happened this week is I actually finally submitted my experienced teacher application. I was waiting on a couple of documents from the principal. They came through and I submitted it, I think on Friday. No, not Friday, Monday. Yeah, I just submitted it this week. So very happy that that's off my plate. The other thing that's happened for me personally, which is a bit of a bummer, is my arthritis has flared up. So I have a couple of autoimmune diseases. I have pernicious anemia, which is a pretty easy one to resolve. I just have B12 injections every quarter. And I have psoriatic arthritis. And I've had that for, I don't know, 15 years now, maybe a long time, maybe not. Yeah, I think it took a little while to get diagnosed, but over 10 years. Anyway, I've been off medication for the last 2 years, which has been really lovely, but it's come back and I'm back on prednisone. So just low dose, but it's a bit of a bummer. I think that's probably to do with me having taken on too much. So I've said yes to too many things, even though they're good things. They just take time and they're commitments. And yeah, so it's just a bit of a lesson for me to just think carefully if I say yes to something, what that entails, and do I have time for that along with everything else that has to get done? Because even if it's a good thing, once it becomes a commitment, then I'm kind of locked into it. And even if I like it, or if it becomes too much. So that's a bit of a bummer, but I'm really grateful for medication that works for me. It hasn't quite kicked in as much as I might have hoped. So I've had to stop yoga for a little bit until my symptoms settle down. And eventually I'll wean off it. That's my usual thing with it. I'm on it, I'm only on 5 milligrams. It's very, very little. And then over probably a 6-month period, I'll wean down hopefully to nothing, but I'll stay on 5 milligrams for a little while, just until it gets, hopefully all the symptoms settle down. I'm hoping not to have to go back to my rheumatologist, because then I have to go get a referral and it's quite expensive, but if I need to, I need to. So hopefully just this will sort me out. But yes, a bit of a life lesson there. Just take it easy. I need rest. On speaking of rest, one of the other things I'll mention is I started finally ordering from HelloFresh. I've been thinking about that for a while. There's probably a lot of places where you order like meal boxes. So we've done that for the last 2 weeks running, and the kids have been helping out by making meals, and that's been really good. So, because it comes with a whole card, and one of the things that, happens is when the kids make a meal, if it's a meal that they're used to me making, they're coming and interrupting me constantly. Oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? And so this has the whole thing for them. And they might ask me just a technique or something, but it's quite empowering for them to just be able to do the whole thing start to finish. So yes, I'm going to keep up with that at least until things settle down for me in mid-July. So that's what's been happening. Coming up this Friday, I've got a concert with my son Zach. He'll be singing. I've got to pick him up from music camp this afternoon. He said his voice is really struggling, so it's Wednesday now, so he's going to have to really ease his voice for the next couple of days for the concert on Friday. So hopefully his voice will be better by then. I'm going for a walk on Saturday morning with my friend Amy. That's the thing that I need to make sure I do. Even if life gets really crazy for me, I keep up with the walking. So I'm trying to walk every day, or at least, not hardcore, walking, pretty gentle. I'll knit while I walk or with a friend and chat. So that's why I want to have the Oslo hat with Mohair, the blue one, finished by Saturday so I can give that to her. And yeah, other than that, I'll be actually, unfortunately, working most of the weekend. I've got, even though I've finished my experienced teacher, I've got a presentation to give to other maths teachers in 2 weeks from yesterday, and that's a 2.5-hour Zoom. So I've done it the last 2 years running, but I've got, I want to update it and cut out a bit, because I just had too much in there, and I need to, one of the things as a teacher is really important is your lesson planning, to work out what can you actually fit in. So, and the last couple of years I've been sort of having to go too quickly, so I need to cut a few things out. So it definitely, even though I've done it before, the presentation needs editing, so I've got to do that. I'm teaching mechanics tomorrow to my year 12 students, and so as soon as I stop recording, I'm going to be finishing off my lessons for that. They're mostly written, but I've just got to finish them off. So that's my last topic for that unit for Extension 2. And then I'm also in the first or second week in July, I'm doing a week-long holiday program at my school for Extension 1 students for maths before their trials. So I've got to write all my presentations for that. So they're the big things that I've got coming up that will keep me busy right up until mid-July. So that's the stuff that I suppose why my arthritis has flared up. It's just, stress, right? That's just what happens if you're, if you take on too much. I mean, it's not an automatic, but for me, obviously that's what's happened. But one of the good things that I'm planning is we're planning a holiday to Bali for a week maybe even longer, maybe 2 weeks in October, with my husband, a couple of the kids and my in-laws. So that should be a really nice thing to look forward to. I've never been to Bali before, so that will be nice. the other things that I guess that are coming up next week. So next week I've got parent teacher with my year 10s. My son, I've got parent teacher for my son. And then my mum is home Saturday, a week from Saturday. So that will be really nice to see her. But yeah, they're the few things that are coming up in my life. So yeah, if you've stuck around, you've heard a lot of what's going on for me, and perhaps a lesson for you too. If you're taking on too much, maybe sometimes there's things you've already said yes to and you can't get out of it. So you're in it, you just got to push through and follow through. But it's a bit of a lesson for me if someone asks me to take stuff on, or if I volunteer for stuff, to just go, just slow down. Do you really have capacity to do that at the moment? I hope people don't feel like this channel doesn't stress me out. I love this. And this is definitely something I could stop. And I have done, like I've taken a break when I've needed to. But this is something that the thing that I don't want to drop off, like my walks, right? Something that nourishes me, like my knitting, that's really important to me. So, yeah, but I do know that I do have to watch myself in terms of, my worth doesn't come from my productivity. This is not how I find, like, this. My value is from being intrinsically human and from my faith, made in the image of God. That's my value, and it doesn't come from what I produce or what I do for other people. Although I might like to do those things, I don't need that to get my sense of worth. So it's probably a lesson for me to just slow down a little bit. So yeah, if that's you too, I hope you are giving yourself the rest you need. And yeah, we're worth it. Right, so time for me to sign off now, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.